And now we're being joined by Vitalii Rishko, Ukraine Program Coordinator, Global Governance Institute. Good afternoon, sir. Delighted to have you with us.
Good day, and thanks for having me.
So let me start here, of course, with this China issue, so to speak. Zelenskyy criticizing China, something he has been reluctant to do for a long time, as Don pointed out. So what is your take on that?
I believe that not only President Zelenskyy had different opinion on what kind of role China can play, but anybody else, including me or other representatives of the Western states, because they were obviously pushing China to take a greater role in the potential peace process. But now that we see on the current developments, I see it as China is aligning more and more with Russia. And while earlier it wasn't really clear whether China will collaborate constructively with other states who are promoting peace negotiations, but now we see that it's probably not going to happen, and I don't see any potential Chinese involvement in the peace process in Ukraine anytime soon.
Right. Now, I said this earlier with one of our guests, and it makes me wonder, because it seems like Ukraine and China have one common thread in this, and that is territorial integrity, right? All the countries around the world have recognized Ukraine's independence back in the early 90s. And so that is not in question. And again, most countries, if not all countries throughout the world, support or recognize the One China policy, which includes Taiwan as part of its territorial integrity, if you will, although it is self-governed and independent in that respect. But it seems to me like this should be important for China, that international law should recognize the territorial integrity of states. Yet China is somehow twisting this. So can you explain how the interpretation is different?
Well, I do have the same opinion, and I've been thinking about it. And at the very beginning, China did support the peace formula negotiations, the overall Ukraine's position that there should be a diplomatic settlement and that Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity should be respected, because China did participate in the meeting, in the international meeting in Jeddah, where those principles were agreed by all the participants. But after that, it decided to not attend any of those international conferences, and now we see that it's not going to participate in the peace summit itself. So I believe here it is probably more of a political question for China, because of the US-China competition, China is not willing to just to support the initiative, which it probably sees as a Western created initiative, so that it will have to align more with the US and its position also. And we know that there are a lot of different developments regarding Taiwan, and China also sees the US in the Pacific strategy as a real threat, because the US is making allies in the region with whom China has an easy relationship because of the South China Sea territorial disputes, and of course because of Taiwan. And I believe it is politically inconvenient for China to support this initiative right now, although it is very interesting that if they want to have their territorial integrity to be respected, then they should align with Ukraine and Ukraine's partners also when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine war.
Right. So, let me ask you about this Asia tour, so to speak. Why is it so important for President Zelenskyy to get countries such as the Philippines on board? For them, it is, the war in Ukraine could be regarded as quite a remote problem, right?
Yeah, I think I would probably frame it even more broader, because, after the Russia's invasion in 2014, the Ukrainian foreign policy wasn't really concentrating a lot on the East itself. Like, we were trying to balance somehow between the West and Russia before 2014, and then we were focusing more on the West itself, on NATO and the EU, and we didn't pay that much attention to Asia, or if you want, the global South in general. And right now it was actually a good call by Ukrainian president's foreign policy advisors to attend this Shangri-La dialogue because it provides more opportunity for cooperation with Asian states to involve them into this peace process. Because in case we can't have China on board, then we're probably looking at other leading powers in the region, and we can include here Philippines. Then we can also talk about India if we talk about a broader Asia-Pacific region, then also Malaysia, Singapore also. So I guess that was the right strategic move. And when we have those countries supporting Ukraine and the West in general, then we'll probably be able to create more tension, more pressure on China itself and Russia after all, to support the position of Ukraine.
Right now, what are your expectations for the upcoming peace summit in Switzerland? Do you think some positive developments will come out of this? Or do you think our correspondent was just saying it's more of a kind of rallying more financial or military support for Ukraine? Do you think it's a combination of both, or?
Well, I would like to actually list two reasons why what could be a breakthrough during this summit. So for the first thing is obviously that there won't be all the issues of the peace formula, all the 10 points won't be discussed. But what's important is that it will be discussed the issue of the release of the prisoners of war, which is very important, and also the issue of Ukrainian children who are being held in Russia for no reason, and it's a clear violation of international law. So I expect that probably after the peace summit, there will be more states who would be willing to be mediators. Like, for instance, we had Turkey, Saudi Arabia, then United Arab Emirates and Qatar, who did participate in different initiatives to release Ukrainian prisoners of war. So I expect more countries to do the same. And secondly, I believe it is anyway very important, even if there won't be any major results, because it will portray both Ukraine and the West in general as the parties that are willing to negotiate and are open to negotiate with the broader global community.
Right.
Yeah.
And garnering more global support to end this war, to negotiate, and on, I guess, on what terms?
Right, by all means. I guess another topic that we've been sort of discussing today are the elections to the European Parliament. And sort of I wanted to ask you what are some of the fears or hopes following that change coming up?
Well, we obviously know that there is a major threat that there will be more of the right-wing parties winning seats in the European Parliament, and it could undermine the support for Ukraine in the long run. But overall, we do expect that the position will not be changed, and it will be moreover strengthened, because we know about the uncertainty in the transatlantic relations. We don't know for sure what will be the U.S. policy to Ukraine and on Ukraine and Russia after the presidential elections. So it would be the best scenario for Ukraine if this support is not worsened but even strengthened.
Yes, well, we'll have to see how that pans out, of course. With just a few days to go. Vitalii Rishko, Ukraine Program Coordinator for the Global Governance Institute, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on the matter. We appreciate it.